Hey everyone, J-Rod Plays here, and happy early New Year, or happy New Year depending on when you're watching this video. I just wanted to put together a guide for the Corrupted since it's one of the tougher nightfalls this season. A lot of people have struggles with this because of a couple different points in the fight, namely like the elevator, for example, some of the transitions on the boss. I even had difficulty on the transition on the boss in this particular video, you'll see, but I found a little bit of way around it. I'm going to show a little workaround for if you have something silly happen, toward the boss fight or around the boss fight that helps you kind of circumvent that. Especially easier if you're on PC, but you can also do it on the newer gen consoles where you can manipulate the game itself, like closing the game, for example, from your menu. So you'll see that in a little bit toward the end of the video. Now, for the build, I was going to go solar, but then I just decided let me go with a control build to help out my teammates, because this is mainly going to be with LFG, and it's going to help me get to the point where if I need to get a res, I can wait for an enemy to be frozen, and then go get the res, and then have that safety, as long as I'm not unfreezing the target, or the target doesn't have resistance to the freeze and just runs through the freeze. I'll be able to pick up my teammates and not have to worry too much about them. Now, thankfully I got two good teammates. They did pretty decent. I don't think they had too many failures or collapses. I think there was one point on the elevator that it did get a little sketchy. I can't remember if this is the run or not, but you'll see that again in the video. I'm going to run the commentary through the video as well. Now, for the build, I have, as you see, max resilience. I have maxed out my grenade, and I've got as high as I can on recovery. Those are going to be the main focuses. For the exotic, we're going to be using the Wicked Implement. I do have the catalyst to get headstone, which is very helpful, and the reason why is on the build. So on the build, we're going to go with Cold Snap Grenade to work with Osmiomancy Gloves, giving us 2 grenade slots so that we can throw the Bleak Watcher turrets. Those turrets are going to help control the enemies, and they're also going to create shards from freezing targets. And so the shards themselves are going to play into your survivability. You can actually pop a healing rift and have these shards come track towards you in this build and give you additional health. You'll end up carrying your overshield out because of the shards, or end up building overshield because of the shards. So I have the Whisper of Durance. That's going to give the targets longer slow. That's going to be applied by both my weapon and by my abilities. It's going to give me some additional strength as well so that I can use my melee to help bring back my grenade. I'm going to be using the Whisper of Conduction. That's where the stasis shards track to you. It also gives you a little bit of flexibility in stats, so 10 resilience and 10 intellect. I'm going to be also picking up Rhyme. That's going to be where you get the overshield, which falls after 10 seconds, and you can collect additional shards to get the overshield timer to refresh. And then this is going to be defeating slow to frozen targets, grants you class ability energy. That's going to help pop more rifts, so that way you have more survivability. So overall, a pretty strong GM build. And again, for Osmiomancy, for those who are new to the game, what this does is this allows you to have an additional charge on your cold snap grenades, and then you also get your cold snap back quickly if it happens to direct impact a target. So if you hit somebody with the initial grenade, you're going to get your grenade right back. Although mostly what you're going to be doing is holding your grenade, charging that up, and throwing out a turret, so that way you can actually take advantage of the control portion of this build. Now, the build itself, it's going to center around the grenade, so I'm going to have double grenade kickstart. I'm going to have elemental charge. That's going to be charging the grenade kickstart by getting those additional armor charges from picking up all of those shards. It's going to be a ton of shards, so you should always mostly have armor charge going. And then dilation if you have something that helps decay. In this case, I don't think I needed it in this build, but I had it because I always have time dilation in the build, so that's just something I just left alone from each build that I carry over. The bomber is important because when you're going to be getting that faster class ability and you pop your rift, you're going to help feed back into getting a turret. And the turrets, again, are going to be doing a lot of the work. Since there's going to be a lot of ice going around, we're going to be doing harmonic siphons. So my primary weapon that I'll be using will be giving me a ton of orbs, so that'll help as well. And then I chose to get better already to help get my health to regenerate from picking up an orb. And then innervation, which helps reduce grenade cooldown anytime I pick up an orb from these harmonic siphons. Get additional heavy ammo finder. It's important. Heavy ammo is going to be scarce in these runs, for me at least. That's how it usually is. And then resists, you always want to have at least the arc resist, and then from there you can go with whatever else. I picked sniper because I didn't want to get sniped, and then I have harmonic resist because I was just filling a slot. It's not really going to help you too much. There's not a whole lot of stasis damage coming in this particular run. And then of course my stats to balance out, as you can see them down here. Now for the Shadebinder, there's going to be some artifacts that are going to help. I was running Blast Radius just because I was trying to fill up the artifact to get further along, but From Whence You Came is going to help do damage to Taken and Scorn, so that's something you should definitely run. Flint Striker is if you happen to be running a solar weapon. I do have a solar weapon in my secondary, although I'm not going to really be able to take advantage of it because mine is a fusion, but again, I'm just filling up the artifact. Wished into Being is going to help get your super back if you happen to be somebody who relies on your super for clearing ads, and there are some certain spots where popping your super will be very helpful. Pillar of Ice, though, is one that's going to be important. That's defeating an encased combatant will spawn stasis crystals, so that's even more crystals. And then Hail the Storm, that's going to be shattering encased targets and stasis crystals deal increased damage, and then shattering stasis crystals release shards of ice that damage and slow targets. So that's going to be where your headstone comes in. If you pop a headstone and you get that stasis crystal, you're going to actually be able to send out damaging shards that are going to also slow enemies in the area. So it's really good for control, and for like the elevator, for example, when you're trying to control those large groups of enemies and some of them kind of may get away from you, that'll help kind of wrangle them in. And so that's going to be the important things on the artifact. And as you can see, just as the setup that I have on the artifact here, if you had any questions on what the actual setup is. And now the next step we're going to be talking about is going to be going through the actual run. If you have any other questions as far as anything on the builds, or if you have your own build that you have some questions for, just throw that in the comments. As far as the weapons go, before I get into the actual run, just so you see what I'm working with weapon-wise. Again, Wicked Implement, I've already kind of explained how that works, but I do want to talk about how it's going to affect your champions. So the Unstoppables, if you freeze them and then you shatter them, they will stun. For the overloads, they'll stun on slow. So you can actually use this weapon to stun both the overload and the unstoppables. And so the unstoppables are going to be weak to your build as you're getting your stasis turret out there, which is going to apply slow to them, freeze them, and they will shatter, stunning them. Then your Wicked Implement can also then be your stunner for your overload. Just hit your shots, boom, you're going to get a stun, and you're just going to keep hitting your shots. And as you keep hitting your shots, that's going to help continue to prevent the overload from getting its health back, allowing you to gun down the overload without having to use a whole lot of heavy. I am running Reed's Regret, and the reason why I'm running this is because I wanted to have some additional damage on the boss. You never know in LFG what you're going to get when it comes to teammate composition and their weapons, unless you actually get on the mic and kind of plan your team composition. So since I was on a no mic run, I was just going to run my triple tap firing line run, because or firing line weapon, should I say, because we're going to be in a group, and whenever we pop her shields, everybody's going to be around with the Adept Big One spec, because this is going to be an Adept Reed's Regret, and you can just run boss spec if it's not, but I do recommend like a firing line Reed's Regret, or a Briar's Contempt, or any other solar linear, for example. So I could have run easily this one here. I could have specifically done Cataclysmic and popped her with my 2 with the bait and switch, and that would have also been fine. But I just wanted ease of use, so Reed Regret was what I went with. My Cartesian Coordinate has Under Pressure and Vorpal, and so that one's just going to be one that I'm running just to make sure that I can poke bounce additional damage on bosses. If they were to get close to me, for example, I don't think I use this much at all. I do tend to stay back, so that's the reason why. And then again, Wicked Implement's going to do most of the damage, most of the slowing, most of the control in the run, and you're going to see that it's actually a pretty underrated weapon. And this season, it can be pretty good with the artifact and a lot of the stasis buffs that have set up in this season. So enjoy the run. Again, I'll see you in the comments if you have any questions, and I'm going to see you on the commentary side from here. So dropping in, we're going to begin by leaning on our stasis abilities, and as you're going to see, I'm charging up a grenade here. I'm going to make sure that I'm locking down this initial overload, and we're going to be leaning on the stasis additional damage from Stasis Surge. Overload goes down pretty quick, and so from there you're going to head off to your right, and you're going to circumvent all the enemies. There's no need to take out the other enemies to your side if you're just going for the completion. Even the overload champions aren't necessary, so how we work it normally, and how a lot of the LFG teams are going to work it normally, you'll see, is you're going to be killing this boss, the Temple Claimant here, and you're going to run past all of the ads that are there and try to get in to the center area and across the threshold so that you can't be shot, and that's going to help you avoid, I think, 2 additional spawns, enemy spawns. Timing-wise, you'll have to make sure that you're moving immediately as soon as this guy is done to get in there. Some people will even risk getting on their Sparrow, so they don't have to be falling behind. And you can see already I'm getting that overshield that's going to help protect me. And I turn around just to make sure that my teammates are also protected as well.
She was taken, but she can be saved. Her will is not her own. Grant her the mercy that she cannot grant.
And you can see there on the left side, my armor charges are not decaying, so I technically don't need time dilation. You can actually swap out time dilation in your build. Again, I just had it on there because it was something that I carried through all of my builds for the most part. And so that's an additional 3 that you can work with for more bomber. You know, if you want to go triple bomber, or if you want to swap that out for something that'll help, like another kickstart or something like that. Even though I wouldn't recommend 2 different kickstarts, I'd recommend just sticking with the grenade kickstart in the build. Now, the key on the elevator, if you're new to Corrupted or if you struggle with Corrupted, is to control the middle. And here you want to take your time and try to build up these additional relics. You can charge them twice and they do more damage. In this case, we were only doing them once, and then I think we only had like 2 relics on the ground, and then mine as well. You can always pick them back up before they expire, but if you let them sit long enough and you hear that charge begin to increase in its pace rapidly, you'll know that it's going to expire and disappear, and you'll have to make a new relic. So here we caught all 3 of them, which was great, and this is going to be like an easier setup than the second one because there's not a whole lot of crap in the middle. So we made quick work of these guys, and again, you want to focus on taking out the projectile first, because that projectile, which I believe is also arc damage, is what ends up killing people more than the boss. Now, as you can see, this guy was low, and when you're on it as a team, you start to create more of these relics immediately. So I've got a relic sitting here, and I'm like, bro, look at me, look at me. He didn't look at me, so that was a mistake. If you're on a team and you're the one that doesn't have the relic, look around for somebody trying to toss you a relic so you can help create it, because we didn't get this same kind of pop, and so now we're kind of screwed because we have a situation where we have guys running around. Yeah, they're being controlled by my turret, but I ended up getting killed because we couldn't clear out the middle with the initial explosion, and this is where it gets a little bit hectic. So thankfully, I think problem 9 ends up getting to router, yeah, and then they end up popping and kind of running around. They almost got knocked off. And here I was like, man, am I going to have to start another run with another team? Because people tend to leave when little mistakes like this happen. Like, I didn't care if that was the case. So, another thing, pop a rift if you're in this situation and you're a warlock like this guy, because all it takes is for a bunch of fire to be under your feet, and then you die instantly by the time your feet touch the ground. So we got lucky the second time around. He popped the well. I was able to get out, and I was able to then start and get my ice turret out, and they had a way to pop the shields. So I didn't know they were popped. I was just going to make sure. I see that here. Okay, it's popped, so now I'm going to get my health back, and I'm going to work on popping this other guy's shield. I'm going to hop past this boss because he's kind of frozen, so he wasn't necessarily as much of a threat. Froze him again and finished off the other one. And so now we got a little momentum. I'm going to work on this one here in front of me. Again, here come the shards to help get my overshield back. I should have probably pulled out my secondary and just laid into him with my secondary, but I was trying to slow him down so that he couldn't get to me, because I didn't know the other one was dead yet. So now that we've got these 3 recovered, that's kind of a very chaotic way to handle it. It would have been a lot smoother if he would have just looked at me and we would have had a properly charged relic going into the elevator phase. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just getting the turret up on the stairs to help control everything that's coming down the stairs, and I also work on that unstoppable. One thing that happens with this unstoppable is once you get it almost dead, it will teleport away, which is ridiculous that it could even do that, but it does. It teleports back into the left or back into the right, into the other room. And so a way to combat that is to try to hit him with something heavy so it can't teleport like it did. But since it did on us, it's no big deal. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take advantage of the distance from the Shrieker. If you stay about where I'm at and allow the Shrieker to open, the Shrieker will not be able to shoot you very easily, and then you can take it down. So me and the other guy with the Polaris Lance did our work, and then here just the Unstoppable, I knew that he was already low, so I'm just going to get in there and get the Unstoppable done. One thing that you can swap out time dilation for that I would do is going to be the overshield during the finisher. That takes 2, and you have 3 as an option to swap out on. And if I would have done that, I would have been completely safe during my finisher to kill that unstoppable, and I wouldn't have had to kind of be a little risky with just low health and having no shields going out there to try to get that unstoppable finish. Now this one is going to be kind of like take it slow and steady. If not, you'll die like this is the teammate that's behind me just did. Right now we only have 2 revives because of that. So you want to make sure that you're hanging back. If the unstoppable begins to shoot at you, you have to take cover immediately and just stay in cover until he switches targets and then pop out again. when it comes to the Shriekers, you can actually do what I was doing with the other Shrieker as well. Just keep a distance from it and continue to slow it and continue to freeze it, and eventually it will end up getting kind of locked up by either your turret or by your shots from Wicked Implement, and then at that point you can put some heavy damage onto it because it's locked up, as you see there. It's going to be like open for a rocket shot. You can hit it with your linear if you really wanted to use linear to push through and you were like trying to get the run done. For me, I just chipped away at it because I knew that eventually it was going to get slowed and frozen over and over again, and it wasn't going to get a whole lot of shots out, maybe like 2 or 3 at a time. If you're still a little greedy, you can die like that, so just try not to, and you don't want to waste reses for your team. There is a ton of champions though, so as long as you're not dying in these middle sections, then you'll get those reses back, no problem. So this is me setting up a turret to attack, so that again it'll freeze. And as you can see, that's a perfect example. It's stuck open, and now it wasn't able to protect itself from the rocket. Sometimes it'll close up with the rocket on the way. Now what he was saying in the chat router is basically saying, like, don't just focus the ogre coming up, because what will happen is if you kill the dark side ogre, you won't be able to get back there and kill the 2 champions that are there, because you need to make up for the champions that you didn't kill on the bridge. So he's trying to get platinum, and what we're going to end up doing is we're going to try to focus this first champion down, and I'm sticking on the left side, so that way whenever we end up on the other realm in about 6 seconds on castaway, you can see the castaway timer there, I can actually throw out a turret and I can get those unstoppables frozen and also have them shatter and start to put damage into them. And here's a good time and a good place to use your heavy on them because they keep resetting backwards. So once you get a good freeze on them, you should just get in there and put as much damage in as you can on them, which is what I'm going to try to do here. And here I'm just picking at the ogre. That way we have just less damage to do on the other side, and I'm just waiting for this castaway timer to come down. Killing ads, just kind of killing times, that way I'm not just sitting idle. And so as you can see there again are the unstoppables. They've gone over to the left side. Now I'm planting a turret so that it continues to do damage to them, continues to lock them down. And so as you can see, both unstoppable were killed by the turret, and our remaining kind of damage over time that we had, so that ended up turning out really well. Now we're done on that dark side. We can actually kill either the dark one or the light one and be stuck on one side. So we're going to end up having to wait to get that res, because homeboy ended up dying right in front of the unstoppable champion up there. And so all I'm doing now is I'm just clearing out this side just in case we end up getting stuck on this side after the realm switch over, and I'm ready with my melee so that I can freeze and shatter the unstoppable and get the res. This is going to actually be a good example of why it's so strong to have a stasis on this particular run, because now I've locked him down. Now I'm just going to go and do a little bit of damage here to this knight, this annoying knight. This thing does a ton of damage in a short period of time too. As you can see, it's already almost got my health past the shields. Here, just protecting my teammates, clearing out more stuff in the middle. If you don't want to go with like a solar secondary like I have, you can also go with something void or something arc to help with this room. Arc for the knights and void for all the little stuff. Now here I'm just hanging back to be safe because the knights have kind of singled me out and they're trying to come in with their boomers. And now it's going to be a little bit tedious going forward from here, because now it's just a matter of saving ammo and picking at the boss. I probably again should have pulled out my secondary and just went to town with my Cartesian on the boss, but again I was just focused on freezing and kind of taking advantage of the build. think I'm going to have time to get that res, so I'm going to run out there and try to get it before the transition. Good thing we weren't separated. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that this knight is controlled essentially, and it's not going to be able to run free. So I'm going to hang back and try to pop at it from one of the other sides. I was also looking for my teammates, thinking like, okay, who am I going to support? And when I saw the problem up here, I said, okay, I'm just going to support problem 9 because he's in a good spot, and we can work together to take out this boss, and that'll push us back to the dark side, which then we can use to run through the gate. And when I mean run through the gate, there's going to be a gate there that you see across from me. On the dark side, there's going to be a portal that you can jump through right below the eye that's at the top. And if you can get past the Shrieker, and it's a little risky, if you can get past it, you end up coming up to the other side and starting to work on the next set of champs. So that's what I was doing there. I was preparing this side so that I don't have to worry about, trying to kill all of these things by myself on one side. I ended up coming and following, and Router came with me. And then we took out the boss and then tried to make it through using my abilities to try to kind of distract the enemies that are here. As you can see, my turret is doing its job and trying to freeze the one Shrieker, and so that means all we have to do is make it past this Shrieker here, which did its best to try to kill me, but, thankfully I got past it. Now again, same thing as what I normally do with these unstoppables. I'm applying slow immediately, and then I'm getting up my turret so that my turret will also apply that slow to work on a freeze so we can get a shatter and get a stun. Another thing that happens with Polaris Lance, if you're new to Polaris Lance, is the Polaris Lance ignition will lock these unstoppables in place. So between Router with his Polaris Lance and me with the Wicked Implement, it's such a good team abilities to have two people doing these things. One is slowing and one is igniting, and both of them are going to stun the Unstoppable. The Unstoppable basically just goes nowhere. Now here's an instance of maybe running a different secondary that's a little more useful. If you're running a Void secondary, like I can run like Under Your Skin, the Void Bow, I could easily have gotten the pop on this guy on the left instead of just sitting there again and again and again. I kind of whiffed my turret. I thought my turret was going to be able to land right on top of that and just start shooting stuff below. And so since that didn't happen, I was like, well, let me support Router, because if not, Router's going to get himself killed. So I turned around to try to help freeze these Unstoppables and put some slow on them so they can't pop him out of his as well. Which, one thing too, thanks to these new builds with some of the Scorch builds, the well is nice, but it's really not that necessary anymore in a lot of these dungeons, especially, or should I say, a lot of these strikes, because of the fact that you're always kind of moving and it's forcing you to move from side to side. You end up kind of walking past the well. Now what I'm doing here is I'm gonna run around to the side, and I'm gonna deal with that overload so that my teammates can actually freely pop the boss as it's hopping around. As you can see there, they're already wrecking the other overload, and so that overload is done with. I'm going to be working on this one by myself, and that'll give them a chance to kill the boss while I'm working on this overload, dropping the rift for safety. And here you can see the slow is preventing the overload from getting its health back, and I'm just stacking it up with Wicked Implement on top of my turret, and it just can't do anything. It's basically useless. Boss is also almost dead, and boom, there we go. Now in the next step, there's a dangerous spot here where you can get separated from your team and they can't get to your orb, which again, I'll show you later on what happens, how to fix that if that happens. That's just, I'm glad that it's in the game, the workaround, but it's just silly that you have to resort to a workaround because your orb won't go to your teammates, which it should. Or your teammates should have a way to get back to your orb, always. Kind of bad design there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for Router and Problem, just in case any of them die. I can just res them again at the top, and the one that ends up making it through will come to the other side, and it'll pull you through. So I know you've probably seen videos on this before, but again, for anybody new that's not understanding why I'm just sitting still and I'm not following my teammates, is so that way we don't have any necessary deaths, and it'll pull you through anyways when one person makes it through. So really only one person has to go. The other two can sit and wait and not waste reses. Because right now we've got 10, we may need them, you never know, so that's kind of why I always try to take myself out of that situation where I'm the one costing us a res. And again, you can see why this build's so nice with the tracking crystals, because now I got an overshield that I can use to combat these acolytes. They actually do a pretty good amount of damage on you. A lot of them can catch you as you're going. Like, you saw that stasis shot. That can actually catch you as you're mid-jump and cause you to fall straight down. So, gotta just be careful when you're coming across with that particular acolyte, and try not to jump while you're under the effects of that stasis, or you'll drop like a rock. Now here I'm placing my turret in a way where it can attack these taken thrall behind the pillar. As you can see, they like to hide back there, and so I'm not giving them that opportunity, and I'm working with the teammate with the Polaris Lance to pick out the bigger enemies, because those are going to be the ones that will cause you problems if you drop down and they pick at you from the side. So now we're pretty much set. There's just some taken thrall, and I'm going to try to pull them out and use my turret to freeze them as they come, use my abilities in case they get a little too close, and that's it for them. You know, that was like one of the easiest, most controlled clear of that particular platform that I've seen. As far as any of my runs with LFGs, everybody did a good job. And since he shielded up the Vandal, I just said, you know, screw it, I'm just going to go over to the Overload and help with the Overload. Now, I wish I had a turret at this point. I don't, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hang back and try to just pick at stuff and not get in the way of my teammates, and keep applying the slow. Again, the slow is what's going to keep the Overload from getting its health back. And now I'm just going over to get the finish if I can. Didn't need to because of the ignition, and we're set. We're on the way to the boss. And so from here, almost winning time. I would say winning time is going to be once you get through the portal. That's when you have to really focus up. But it's still important to try and not waste any reses by doing anything dumb or exposing yourself in this particular fight. And the way that we do that is the platform that's in front of us, again, for new players, it has a couple of pillars that are good to hide from the boss. So this pillar here that I'm standing next to, this pillar on the left that you see in my view, and then the pillar by Problem 9 that's also kind of fallen over. It's more of like a rock formation. That's going to be the 3 places on this platform where we're going to hide from. So I'm getting a turret out there so that everything kind of gets stuck and frozen, and then it'll also keep the attention sometimes of the boss. And anything that jumps over, we're going to end up getting frozen as well. Here's where the headstone kicks in, and a lot of these shards, if you see that I'm breaking those headstone crystals, and that's pushing shards out, forcing things to be slowed, and that makes them easy targets for my teammate with the Polaris Lance, who's sitting in his well. He's going to move up, and so I don't have to. I'm going to make sure that I'm not causing an additional problem by getting killed as I'm crossing over, and letting him do the throw, which is going to make it easy for me to get my shots on Sedia. I wish they'd been back here right as I was shooting, because then I would have got the firing line the first time, but I got it now, and I got my shots in, and so she's pushed to the second set, and she's going to be there on the left now. I'm repositioning my turret as well, because the first turret on the right, while it did good, it wouldn't have been as good as if I would have maybe put it in the middle. So maybe considering starting your turret in the middle, so that way when they hop over, they hop into your turret. Getting a second turret out there. And again, I'm just doing my best to make sure that if I take any damage that's somewhere around half health, I hide, because I'm not going to be contributing to costing us a res that we may need on the other side. I'm going to grab my heavy, and I'm going to get in position, so that way we can use the platform at the back where the 2 statues are looking at each other as a safe spot. and I'm going to end up being the one to catch the orb and to start the damage phase, because they both went after the thing, and it's like I'm the one over here, so I'm going to try to get it. He ended up throwing it behind me, so I'm like, come on, bro, like, throw it at him or throw it at me. So I'm like, all right, let's try again. So this time I jump up and I get the catch. And now I'm waiting for my teammates to come over safely. We're going to start the damage phase. And we're going to try to get her to half, so that way we can get through the portal, and that's where we're at here. Now, I backed off. This was the mistake that I made. I shouldn't have backed off. I should have just stood there. And because of that, I didn't actually get to touch the portal right as it spawned, and then it got my my orb stuck on the other side. And so what happens normally, and it's going to happen with most teams, is that they're going to get in a situation where they're just going to try to finish it with 2 men. But what they don't know is that if you get stuck in this situation where my orb's on the other side, as you see here, you can actually rejoin the fight. And so the way that you rejoin the fight is you either back out of your game into your game's menu and you kill your application if you're on like PS5 or Xbox. And on the computer, it's much easier. You can just Alt F4, as they say. What I ended up doing was going into my task manager and just killing the game through my task manager. And then from there, Steam will recognize the game is closed and allow you to relaunch the game. And then when that does, you're going to get a screen that looks just like that. This is me here clicking rejoin activity. And so once you rejoin the activity, then you're going to get sent right back into the fight. And the cool thing about this, not to abuse it either, right? I mean, I use it when I need to. I don't use it to abuse it. But when you do get back into the fight, a lot of the times, the game will give you back all of your ammo as if you're starting over. So, because when you start a new GM, you start out with full heavy. And so, if I had like very little heavy, or since I used some of the heavy there, I didn't have heavy as much going into the fight. Now I've got 21 shots going into the fight and full ammo and everything, so full abilities. And so that was me telling them, I typed to them, I said, hey, I'm going to be right back. And one of them, I think Router, responded, why? He didn't realize what I was doing was I was basically fighting back against the game's poor design, that he didn't put my orb on the other side when everything teleported. And I rejoined the fight. I was dropped into the Ascendant Realm, which they are right now. It looks like Problem 9 got himself killed a few times. And now we're getting to the final boss with 12 reses left. And another thing that's cool about rejoining is that it doesn't take a res from you when you come back. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where the game has screwed you over, that's one way to kind of fight back, get a little flaw in the design of the games, and hoping the developers just leave it in, because it's bad enough whenever you are pushing through a GM and you've invested now 26 minutes, as you can see on the timer, to get to the boss, and then something crappy like that happens where, you know, I'm in the air, the things kill me, and I'm touching the portal, but it doesn't take me, and then it doesn't take my orb either. So now I'm back in the fight. I'm getting my turret down so that it keeps the scions kind of locked in place. I should have probably put it on the left side, preferably, looking at it back again. And that would have made that whenever things spawn on the left side, there is going to be a spawn kind of by that left pillar. Then I would have been able to help with that same turret without having to worry about repositioning it. But it's fine, I got another turret, and I'll lay that down when necessary. Again, I wasn't thinking necessarily on the spawn. I should have put it on the left side there. But now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sit in the... wow, I didn't realize that he was going to die right in his well. I was going to sit in the well and allow the turret to protect us from anything coming close. What I'm doing now, too, is I'm putting the pillar between me and Sedia whenever I can, because I don't want to get booped and, you know, cause a stupid death from that. Thankfully, Router was able to get that catch, and he was going to end up popping her, and now it's truly winning time because everything is spawning, but we can get a bunch of damage on her in a short period of time, and there's the killing blow right there. And so that's the whole fight. As you can see, we're getting our drops. I got a pretty good chromatic fire from that I think replaced the one that I had. And as you can see, I'm getting the triumphs popping up along the bottom there. If you guys have a different build and you're struggling or you have questions, just like I was saying in the build section, you can go ahead and throw them in the comments. Don't forget to drop your commendations for people to try to help them get their commendation score up, since we're starting Guardian ranks all over again, and the commendation scores I think are still a little bit too high. I'm at 1056 here in the video. I need to get to 1500 just to get to rank 11 requirements. So kind of annoyed since there's not anything new to do. You just have to really grind old stuff like old raids to get the bigger bumps in commendation score. But Happy New Year's for everybody watching this video after the fact. Early Happy New Year's if not, and I'll see you guys in the next video.